Nikola Tesla. Bogus Inventors Part 1. Tesla left Pittsburgh in the autumn of 1889 to return to New York to start his second laboratory. Now on Grant Street, he would begin work on high-frequency apparatus, wireless transmission, and theories on the relationship between electromagnetic radiation and light. In particular, the inventor wanted to replicate the findings of the German academician Heinrich Hertz, a student of Hermann Ludwig von Helmholtz's, who had recently published his landmark experiments in wave propagation. Tesla said that this work caused a thrill as had scarcely ever been experienced before. "I was not free at Pittsburgh," he continued. "I was dependent and could not work. When I left that situation, ideas and inventions rushed through my brain like a Niagara." Before he set up shop, the inventor traveled to Paris to attend the Universal Exposition and witnessed the unveiling of a gargantuan architectural triumph, the Eiffel Tower. Returning to a city filled with fond memories, Tesla could say hello to old friends and tell them how far he had come. There the budding creator could stop once again at the Louvre to gaze upon the marvels of Raphael, his self-perceived counterpart in the fine arts. Nevertheless, Tesla also had mixed feelings, as he was traveling in the shadow of his nemesis, Thomas Edison, who not only attended the fair, but who also provided a one-acre site for displaying his various inventions. In particular, the phonograph created a sensation, and Edison was received as a veritable demigod. While Edison, who was accompanied by his new wife, Mina, just 22 years old, lunched with Alexandre Eiffel in his apartment at the top of the tower, Tesla met with Prof. Wilhelm Bjerknes at the fair to witness the beautiful demonstrations of his vibrating diaphragms. A Norwegian physicist from the University of Stockholm, Bjerknes had, along with Jules Henry Poincare, not only replicated the work of Heinrich Hertz on the propagation of electromagnetic waves through space, they had also, according to Hertz, discovered multiple resonance and had worked out the mathematics of the phenomena. Tesla was able to study Bjerknes' oscillator, which provided a variety of electromagnetic waves and a resonator for augmenting them, and also discuss with him theoretical implications concerning the properties of the electromagnetic waves thereby produced. And while the Wizard of Menlo Park met with Louis Pasteur at his laboratory in Paris and received the French Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor for his achievements, Tesla developed one of his most important discoveries, namely, that so-called Hertzian waves not only produce transverse oscillations, suggested by Bjerknes, but also longitudinal vibrations structured much like sound waves, that is to say, waves propagated by alternate compression and expansion of the ether. This conceptualization would come to play a pivotal role in the wireless transmitters Tesla would construct over the next decade. As Tesla packed his bags for a brief visit to see his family, Edison continued on his tour. In Italy, he was honored by Queen Margherita of Venice and King Humbert of Rome. In Berlin, he met with Helmholtz at his laboratory, and at Heidelberg, Edison displayed his phonograph before a monster meeting of 15,000 people at which the machine delivered a speech in good German. Edison's favorite moment, however, was when he attended a large dinner given by Buffalo Bill, who was touring Europe with his Wild West show. And as Tesla left for New York, Edison continued on to London, where he could visit his central stations, but also learn firsthand that the new use of the Tesla AC was here to stay. In Deptford, for instance, in this year, an engineer by the name of Ferranti installed probably the first ever working single-phase generating station with a Tesla system. He was able to transmit 11,000 volts 11 miles away to London. Although a truly epoch-making achievement, this plant, for some unknown reason, received virtually no publicity. This was a complex time in the history of the electrical industry. Those electrical experts in Europe and America who took the time to study the Tesla creation saw its benefits immediately. In Switzerland and Germany, polyphase induction motors were being constructed by C.E. Alec Brown and Michael von Dolivo-Dobrowolski. And in America, Elihu Thomson, son of Thomson Houston, and William Stanley did the same. As in any branch of science, it was customary to study and replicate the work of others. But in electrical engineering, success ensured not only a place in history, but also a substantial profit. Thus, there would be many, such as most of those mentioned above, who would try and claim the polyphase system as their own. There was another motor invention, however, called the hydro-pneumatic pulsating vacuum engine, which was on much safer ground. Nobody could replicate the intricacies of its machinery, and nobody but the inventor, John Ernst Worrell Keeley, knew how it worked. Keely had gotten the idea for the motor after reading the treatise Harmonies of Tones and Colors, developed by evolution, by Charles Darwin's niece, Mrs. F.J. Hughes, which discussed the structure of the ether and various theoretical harmonic laws of the universe. Hailed as a virtual perpetual motion machine, the Keely motor never ceased to intoxicate the public, for Keely had the uncanny ability to keep the secret going, but continually achieve abstruse results. In the opinion of Madame Blavatsky, Keely has discovered thrill, the mysterious force of the universe in which Lord Lytton drew attention in his coming race. Keely calls it sympathetic negative attraction, rivaling snake oil salesmen in the ability to humbug the public. Keely, a former circus sleight-of-hand performer, had formed a company in 1874, capitalized with $100,000 of stock in order to sell his motor, and had been successfully doing so for nearly 15 years, until 1889, when his work was questioned. Public opinion wrote that engineers, scientific men, and capitalists made frequent pilgrimages to Keely's Philadelphia laboratory to see the Keely motor mode. Sometimes it MOT'd and sometimes it didn't. But Keely always had a great tale to tell. Keely's chief accomplishment was airy use of jargon of scientific and unscientific terms. He talked about triune currents of polar flow of force, the reflex action of gravity, chords of mass, sympathetic outreaches of distance, dipolar etheric waves, and a lot of other things which didn't mean anything. But he never told why his motor MOT'd and why he never took a patent, although he did have them drawn UPT. Carpenter Smith, writing in Engineering magazine, described a witness account with the inventor at work. Mr. Keely proceeded to produce the force by striking a large tuning fork with a fiddle bow and then touching the generator with the fork. After 2 or 3 attempts, which he said failed by reason of not getting the chord of the mass, he turned a small valve on the top of the generator. When a slight hiss was heard, loud cheers greeted his announcement that he had got it. The state of mind of the audience may be imagined when the shout of one enthusiast, Keely, "You are next to God Almighty," seemed only a natural expression. This mountebank inventor headlined the New York dailies with his newest creations and also the accompanying cry of fraud. Factions of the public demanded he be jailed, the court giving Keely 60 days to divulge his secret, but Keely held fast, threatening to stop work on his inventions unless the court dropped its suit. Keely was held in contempt of court, and in November of 1888, he was placed in jail. Shortly thereafter, through his counsel, Keely revealed that the missing link was a copper tube in the form of a hoop, and he was released on bail a few days later. He argued that he had indeed obeyed all orders of the court in explaining his invention in detail, and the suit against him was overturned like Edison, who promised and gave the world the lamp of Aladdin, and Tesla, who discovered and harnessed a purported alternate ing current perpetual motion machine. Keely billed his own invention as the greatest scientific discovery of the century. Apparently vindicated, Keely proceeded with his deception. In 1890, the world celebrity and palmist Count Louis Heyman, better known as Chiro, visited the Keely lab, and by 1895, John Jacob Astor became an investor. Unfortunately for Tesla, however, like Keely, he too was gaining a reputation for making outlandish claims. For instance, Tesla said that his system could place 100,000 horsepower on a wire and send it hundreds of miles with almost no loss of power, when the prevailing technology could only send a few hundred volts 1 mile, and in that case, with power dropping off markedly with distance. Never mind that this prognostication came true just a few years later. Tesla's style was that of a visionary, and the claim seemed ridiculous to the unimaginative, the uninformed, or people who listened only to the opposition. He was little different from Keely, and so he suffered through guilt by association. End of Part 1. Nikola Tesla. Bogus Inventors.